Back to another edition of Mogul Talk, and today is a special edition, and I'm excited to get into today's conversation because we have William Honablew, and I'm going to read his bio, but it really does not do him justice, especially the more I researched him. So I'm going to read this first, and then we're going to bring out more of his bio and all his accolades as we continue the conversation. William Honablew is the president of GrindingGang Incorporated and currently resides in Maryland as a business consultant and attorney who has over 20 years of experience working with small to medium-sized businesses to re-engineer their business processes and grow revenue while positively impacting their stakeholders. He has trained not one, not two, but thousands of people throughout the country of various topics, including financial management, strategic planning, marketing, effective communication, advocacy, and the legislative process. And as we talk, there's something I really want to ask because I've been in the political sphere too. So It's going to be interesting to see the parallels of our worlds. And he has worked with educational, government, non-for-profit, and for-profit organizations to help them move to their next level. And he has mentored and advised thousands of clients, launched an award-winning entrepreneurship center, and supported clients in obtaining more than $1.1 million in non-debt cash infusion. And I know that's a great bio already, but like I said, that is only the cusp of the greatness of William Honablew. So welcome. I'm very excited to have you on our show today.
Hey, how you doing? I'm excited to be here. I am so excited.
Yes, and one of the things that I think is so phenomenal is that your affiliation, of course, with the Black USA News Network. And so we see the background here. So that gets really into my first question, because we're, of course, all about Black platforms. To you, what is the most pressing challenge that you feel is facing the Black community today?
I think the most pressing issue is the fact that we're trying to find the most pressing issue. It's kind of like if you're in the middle of having a heart attack, a stroke, and a seizure, what's the most pressing issue? And that's kind of where, as a community, we find ourselves. And what I find is very challenging is that there are people who believe that they have found the answer. And if your background doesn't align with the answer they found, then there must be something wrong with you. The things like, I don't understand why those people don't do this. I don't understand why they don't do that. All they would have to do. And if you get to a point where there is a logical step that someone should take and they're not taking it, then stop trying to use logic to understand it. Use your heart, understand that there is something that is not logical here. And until you address that, there's going to be a disconnect, not just between the two of you, but also for them and what they should be doing.
No, that's true. And that actually brings me to my next question, because it ties in perfectly. My question was for those who, of course, we have an overwhelming amount of issues that we face. And I like how you said it just depends really on that moment. For those who are so overwhelmed and think that it's a broken system and like, what can I really do to change it? For those who are feeling maybe disgruntled, but they don't see a way or a light at the end of the tunnel, what advice do you have for them? Because I know advocacy is one of your backgrounds.
Yeah. Sometimes there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes that light at the end of the tunnel is a train. And sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel is actually the end of the tunnel and you're into freedom. The problem is, why are you in the tunnel? Like, we always talk about like the light at the end of the tunnel. We shouldn't be in the tunnel. Like, why are we in a tunnel? I didn't ask to be in the tunnel. Like, how did you? And so what happens is, like, we end up in places that we didn't ask to be. And so then it's like, well, why aren't you successful here? What is success here? How would I know that? If I've never done this before, success is only a story in my head. I don't know what it actually is. I'm trying to make this story in my head come true. And so if that is where I am going and I am trying to, with these expectations, move them in that direction, then I'm not actually dealing with real life. I am having this double vision where, on one hand, I see the real things, but on the other hand, I'm looking for something that doesn't exist. And that incongruence makes it feel overwhelming. So first ask yourself, why the hell are you in the tunnel? Maybe you shouldn't keep going this way. Maybe you should turn back around. But we're in a capitalist system that drives increase. I was talking to a young lady today, and she was like, I can't be in a relationship if he's not trying to push me to the next level. Calm down. How about somebody who just wants to have some soup? How about that? How about you find a dude who wants some soup? But we get caught into our identity being intertwined with our roles, how much money we have, and these types of things. And we lose the opportunity to have authentic engagement because we're trying to make a story in our head come true.
Yeah, I think we do a lot of times take what society deems as normal or deems as the right way to do things, and we internalize it. And sometimes it's just not meant or made for us. And we have to, like you said, turn around. It's okay to turn around and maybe pivot and go elsewhere. And I think that's why networks such as yours, the Black USA News, is so important, because you talk about business, you talk about politics, editorial, and op-ed. So I know the importance of it, but please share with our audience who are maybe just new to your network, why more about it, and then why this platform is important.
So blackusa.news, our network has been around for just over a year. We are offshoot of DM Global, Donnie Morton Glover, the CEO of Black USA News and the other brands. And what it is an opportunity to have conversations that a lot of times we have on the phone with each other or in small groups, and sometimes in our own heads, that we can have them publicly. And what I've found is that your ability to share something that you're going through, it can transform someone else's life. Actually, I was talking to one of our audience members a couple days ago, and she was like, "Hey, I wanted to let you know that I've started therapy." And I was like, "Oh, cool." She said, and it was because of like all the stuff you all have been talking about on the show about, the stories in your head, and how, guests would talk about mental health and how trauma, it's trauma. The trauma wasn't your fault, and getting people to understand, because people start internalizing it, to your point. Oh, I must have done something. If I had just chosen something different, if I had it's like we end up internalizing the victim blaming. And so creating a platform where people can tell authentic stories, where they can tell them who they are and say, like, because I'll be the first to tell you, I got mental health challenges that have been documented. But when I tell that to people, they're like, for real? That's you? It's like, yeah, but problem is you have a story in your head about what that looks like. It is me. There's thousands of other people that look like me, and you don't treat us like we have an issue because we don't look disabled enough. I don't look depressed. Oh, you seem really good. Like, you seem upbeat. Like, how you going to do a show and you be depressed? Like I have a challenge. One of the challenges that I have is being able to make phone calls to certain people. Like, there are people who I love dearly, like are part of my life, that I haven't been able to call in a year because the anxiety just gets me and I can't do anything about it. But when I was talking to somebody about it, they were like, "Dang, I mean, you could just, like, if you focus more, if you concentrate more." And it's like, I needed you to understand, not tell me how I'm bad, like tell me what I'm doing wrong. And so to have a platform, and the platform is amazing. We have programming 7 days a week. I do the morning show from 10 to 11, Monday through Friday. You can catch us on our Facebook channel and our YouTube channel. But we provide a platform for people to tell authentic stories. It was really cool. I had the associate administrator for the SBA. She came through to talk about some of the Biden-Harris administration's reforms in small business and procurement, and opening up opportunities to more small businesses, particularly Black and women-owned. But, because again, I don't want to really talk about just paperwork stuff, because if you come to my show, you got to leave a little bit of yourself here. You can't take it all with you, because my audience wants something more. And so we talked about her business experience. So let me give you this context. This is a woman, she and her brother worked for the Obama administration. Not like, hey, I work for like 4 government bureaucracies down. No, like part of her job was to brief the president of the United States. So we're not graduate from Harvard, and I'm sure in her Rolodex are people who can make things happen that I don't even know exist, right? So she and her brother, after the administration, started her own business. And one of the things that she shared, because I was talking about, one of the real things we talk about often is that this is hard, because a lot of times we feel like it's just me. Like, oh, I look at everybody else's Facebook, they looking happy or whatever. They got matching pajamas for Christmas, and I'm sitting here lonely and blah, 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 not realizing that there was a huge fight before they snap that picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was talking to her about the challenges that small businesses had, and she shared that when she and her brother started their business, there were years, and it was 7 years before, I think 6 or 7 years before he passed away, after they started the business. She said there were years where they didn't have health insurance because they couldn't afford it. There were times where they didn't have the resources and they had to go without getting paychecks to make sure that their team actually got paid. And hearing that somebody at that, what we imagine to be that level, who should have all of the unlimited resources, blah, 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 to hear that she has those kind of struggles, it hits differently when you are looking at your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because we internalize that expectation of, well, if I'm in charge, I should be able to do it. If I'm a parent, I should be able to manage all the bills. I should know what to do. I should be able to go to the school. Says who? Says who?
Mm-hmm.
And so we create a platform so that people can hear the voices of each other and realize that you're not alone. This is a common experience, and that we're doing it all together. And with the network, we're able to touch a lot of people and just help them understand and introduce them to things that they may never heard of. Cryptocurrency. I'm still a little cautious about it, but I've been able to learn from the shows. I can't remember the brother's name. He does the Saturday show on cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. I've been able to learn about pitching and stuff like that and reframe some of the way I think about it from Tasmir's show. And Donnie Glover, the stuff that he does with politics, local politics, and he, gets the elected officials on and calls them names and holds them accountable. It's hilarious to watch it go down. Hilarious. But again, it's really important to have platforms like this, like yours, so that the voices actually get heard and we stop being stereotypes and statistics.
And that's exactly what I was going to come at. The importance of having platforms that will educate us, motivate us, and empower us to progress forward, even if it's in baby steps. It doesn't have to be in leaps and bounds, but something. And what really resonated to me was about sharing your story, and then the SBA administrator's story as well. That spoke to me personally, because we always like to glamorize the entrepreneurship. Oh, yes, we're going to be rich overnight. But no, it doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. And we get stuck in our heads. Okay, I see everybody else, it happening for everyone else, but we don't know what they took to get to the point.
I'm sorry, you about to set me off. I apologize. So I'm working
through my
mental health. Yeah, I'm working through my mental health. So you say trigger words and I have to do something. You talked about, like, even if these programs have baby steps. And I think that we need to acknowledge that all of us don't walk the same. Mm-hmm. Like, on one hand, we talk about don't stereotype us, we're not monolithic. But on the other hand, we say things like Clarence Thomas is not part of the Black people or part of the Black experience. No, those things are mutually exclusive. And so when we start looking at who we are, the question is we should ask each other, because our race is not even a real freaking thing. It's a social construct designed to separate us. Mm-hmm. Like there was no such thing as race before the 1600s. Didn't exist. But they needed a way, but capitalism did. Mm-hmm. Greed did. And so let's not get it twisted, while we live under this European-esque system in America, this bastardized version of it, they were fighting beforehand. They were fighting over religion. Oh, you're a Catholic, you're a Quaker, you're a Protestant, are you from France, you're from Germany, you're from England, There's always been a reason to keep people separate, so that the people who actually supply them to fight each other and stay separate, they get the money. Mm-hmm. And so then moving to America, and America didn't follow the regular rules. Americans came over, these Europeans and people came over and they all mixed. And they were like, well, normally we can say, your accent, I can tell if you're French or whatever, but like we're all here together kind of, and we all have business together. So we need somebody to be the underclass. And so at first it became landed gentry. Mm-hmm. Like if you are landed gentry, you have rights amongst all noblemen. And what ended up happening is, like, the other people, you couldn't tell the difference. So like, dude, if you got a good tailor or found somebody else's suit, you show up and speak landed gentry. All of a sudden, everybody thinks you're down. And so they're like, this don't work. Okay, all right. But you know what does? The dark ones. You could just look at them and tell. So let's call this, and the other part too is, like, we're really about to do some really jacked up things to them. So not only are they different and can be discriminated, they're less than. They're less than. So they're not real sentient beings. So we can do what we want to them, like the rest of the property, like our cattle, like our pigs, because it's the same kind of thing, because they're not real people. Mm-hmm. And so we, as this has gone on intergenerationally, this is what we have learned.
Mm-hmm.
We have learned our lesser place. And people talk about, well, the system needs to be fixed. No, it doesn't. It's not broken. It literally is not broken. It has been improved so much because guess what? I was not even supposed to be able to count and have an opportunity to have this conversation. And I was only good for 3/5. Not even, I didn't even have rights, just my number to the count of the census. So my inequality is part of this country. Mm-hmm. The fact that I have these opportunities is not, that is the fix. What we need to be talking about is, why do we think that this is good at all? Why are we not talking about some of the more progressive policies like universal basic income? How many families have been ripped apart because of finances? Mm-hmm. I mean, think of it, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that was one of the ways that Black families got broke apart. Well, we have this public housing, and if you stay here, we won't be able to get the benefits, so you have to leave. And guess what? These people will come and check. They will come to my house whenever they choose, walk through my house to see if my man is there. And if he is, I will be penalized for my relationship with him. That sounds plantation-ish to me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So many gems dropped there. And it actually ties into one of the questions that came to mind when I was looking at your website. And we've touched on it a little bit, but I want to dig deeper into it because you mentioned on your website, trauma-informed entrepreneurship. And I think this is a unique approach that is not really talked about because, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of us have trauma that we are dealing with, but maybe we just don't know it. It's not into the forefront, and it does need to come out. So I wanted to ask more about how you approach that with your clients, and if there's any advice you want to share about that as well, going deeper into what we were talking about earlier.
So part of it is the recognition that it all comes together, that our experiences in America create a level of trauma just by being Black. It's something that big shout out to Desiree Dixon of Bolton Therapy. She's been really leading the way on this concept of identity-based trauma. So I'll use myself as an example. I have never personally had a negative run-in with the police. Actually, when I was young, I had some proclivities that brought me into contact with said law enforcement, and I was always treated politely. My cousin was the chief of police for one of the largest and wealthiest Black counties in Maryland. So I have never personally had a negative interaction. However, especially when I'm down south, because my son goes to North Carolina A&T, whenever I drive down there, I feel more apprehensive. Not because I see a police officer behind me. It's not because I've done anything. It's not because I know that police officer. It is because I know that there's a part of the skin that I am in that makes me vulnerable. And so even though I've never had a problem with this officer, this jurisdiction, or police in general, there is a level of trauma that I know that this makes me vulnerable to. And that also helps shift our identity. When my friends, and we're going to, shout out in March. March is the month of women on the morning show. And we're going to have, and this will dovetail it back into what I was saying. And we're going to have authentic female stories. We want women to come and talk about what it's like to be them, not just what they do, but like, how do you even manage the roles? Because I'm talking about this identity-based trauma, a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients talk about that as well. They talk about, well, I know that if I show up this way, this is going to happen. So you have traumatized yourself before the person actually traumatizes you. But the question becomes, well, this is a story in your head because, it's a story in your head. You don't have any necessary evidence. Like, I don't have any evidence. Actually, all of my evidence is to the contrary. Police have always treated me well. But that story in my head about what could happen, that is trauma by itself. And if we don't take into consideration that these stories in people's heads are driving their decision making, then we will never be able to actually help them. The example I use from my clients is this concept of phantom pain. Let's say that my arm is necrotic. Meaning it's dead and it just hurts all the time. And you take an MRI of my brain, you see these sites lighting up because it is on fire and it's killing me. And my doctor says, hey, look, There's nothing we can do to save the arm. We have to amputate. Cool. Well, not cool, but okay. And so they amputate the arm. I come out of surgery. I'm in recovery. I said, it still hurts. They said, that's fine. But 3 weeks later, it's still killing me. They go back and put me in an MRI, and they see the same part of my brain is lit up that was lit up when my dead arm was connected. It's called phantom pain. So what's happening is that I am really feeling pain for an appendage that no longer exists. Mm. And so in the treatment of phantom pain, if I am a doctor who is not dealing with the fact that your feelings are real, then I can't help you. If I'm a patient and I'm not dealing with the fact that I don't have an arm, I can't be helped. And so as we are starting to engage many of the communities, it is really when they do not make a logical step, recognize that it might be something else. And so let's stop talking about logic. Let's stop talking about, well, why don't you do this? It just makes sense. What are you feeling? What are you afraid of? What is holding you back? And let's talk about that. I don't want to belittle you about it. I don't want to chastise you about it. Mm-hmm. I want to understand it. And again, just because something is a story in your head doesn't mean you're wrong, but it's a risk. Mm-hmm. For me, I make up stories in my head all the time. You know why they did that? The only reason they did that is then I go, whoa, crazy person, come here, come on, calm down, crazy person. Tell me the fact that that feeling is based on. Well, because they said this. Okay, is there another way that this can be taken? I mean, you could, but I'm saying, I know. Okay. So you do know. Tell me how you know. Because they don't like me that much. Oh, tell me how you know that. Because they friendly with everybody else than they are with me. Oh, do you reach out to talk to them? I mean, no, but I mean, they reach out to talk to other people. Do you know if they're? I mean, okay, yeah, maybe they didn't mean it that way. but I do the same thing with my clients, because sometimes the story in our head is once I get my corporation, once I get my 501c3, once I get this grant. A friend of mine used to tell me, she said, William, I'm tired of win eyes. And I was like, what are win eyes? She says, I've been on a diet since I was 8 years old. And I always said, when I lose weight, I was going to go do this. When I lose weight, I was going to go to the Caribbean. When I lose weight, I was going to focus more on relationships. And she said, I realized that I wasn't living, I was waiting to live. And she said, I had to anchor back into like, why am I even concerned about this? Like, how is my weight going to affect this? It won't. Mm-hmm. It'll just affect how I perceive the world. So if the weight isn't a real thing that will change my life significantly, but it is my mindset, maybe they're not related. Mm. What? Maybe my weight has nothing to do with my enjoying life, notwithstanding the fact that every magazine cover, every doctor's office, every BMI table will tell you to the contrary. Because, you know, if you look at the media, if you not like have a low BMI, you can't have fun in life. Nobody buys us husky people drinks. Those are the stories in your head. Those are the stories that we are trained to be. And so you see a person that you find attractive, is like, why don't you wear some clothes that show it off? It's like, oh, nah, that's not for people my size. Says who? So we work with trauma in that, you know, we just want to make sure that you level set your expectations. And it's modeled a lot on the work that's done through K through 12. Because K through 12, and especially trauma-informed education, they do a fairly good job. It's the implementation that sucks. Mm-hmm. Because you are having people who don't even understand their own trauma explaining it. That's why when people say schools, so I'm a very big proponent that schools should not teach financial literacy or financial education. And people are like, that's the problem with the Black community. I say, no. The problem is that, you know what schools are supposed to teach? Reading, writing, math, science, and things like that. You know what they suck at teaching? Reading, writing, math, and things like that. Like, they've been doing the reading, writing, and math for 200-300 years and they ain't got that right. So all of a sudden, we acknowledge how critical financial education is and give it to the same people. One, I know these people. Their credit ain't good. How are we gonna get you help? I'm sorry, this, I
No,
apologize.
that's true though, because a lot of the financial.
I forgot. On my show, I can say whatever the hell I want and yell at people. But
No, you know what?
have
I
a much more
anticipated
respectable.
this.
You have a much more respectable brand. I apologize.
No, you know what? No, you be yourself, because we need the transparency, and I already knew that you would keep it 100 on the show, and
No.
Oh no,
I
wait,
don't keep
wait,
it
was
100.
It wasn't 100. That's right. You say something different. Go ahead.
I will keep it 85.
85. That's
15%
right.
y'all don't
Because
need to know about.
you need to reserve that
And
for yourself.
5% I'm trying to forget myself.
Right. No, but still, I mean, your transparency is what's needed, because we've pushed so many things under the rug and say, okay, we're going to let it slide. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so soon it's just like a big mound under the rug, and you notice it, but you're just not addressing it. So it's really important for us to highlight that. And you said so many things, I don't even know where to begin. But one of the things that I like the best on your, going back to your website, and you mentioned it today, because about the win nots, is that it? The win nots? When I, yes. So you mentioned about celebrating your progress in a clip. And I think that's very important, because we're always looking for that next moment that we forget to live in the moment and see, like, if we just look back, not for too long, but look back to see how far we've come, we would notice that we've made more progress than we really realize.
Absolutely. It is making sure that you level set your expectation, because I was on a pitch competition panel, and I told the young lady, I was like, you showed up today like you didn't know what you were talking about, and you shouldn't. You don't know what you're talking about. You've never done this before. And one of the other panelists had some challenged me on it. It's like, as a Black woman, I need to show up every time, all the time, off the break, because I only get the one shot. And my feedback to her was, yeah, that's the problem. And I'm not talking about how you show up for them, because if you don't wear your Black woman uniform with the cape and the appropriate amount of makeup and the appropriate size heels and attractive but not too sexy and all of these things, if you don't show up like that, they are going to have a problem with you. But my thing is, remember, that is not who you actually are. You might wear a Superwoman costume because that's what you got to wear for work, but damn sure don't jump in front of no bullets. That's not for you. But what we also find is that, real talk, Black women tend to be bulletproof just because they have to be. And so the rest of us is like, oh my God, if you could withstand a bullet, then it must be okay. I don't know if anybody has ever gotten shot when they're wearing a bulletproof vest. It's not okay. Just because that joint did not go through you, now that you have like some sprain, if you're lucky, just sprain ribs, like, oh, I did something. Oh no, it's cool. Just because the problem is, again, just like business and all these other things you're talking about, people get most of their information from movies. Watch this. If I ask a lot of people, have they ever been to London? They're like, no, I've never been there. I say, okay, but do you know what side of the road they drive on? They say, oh yeah, they drive on the opposite of America. But how do you know that? What? And you start seeing them trying to remember what they don't. They saw it on TV. And again, this is one of the problems with stories in our head, because there are some stories that are real. I've never been to London, but I will argue you up and down that they drive on the opposite side as they do in America, because I have people that have been there. I've seen pictures of them. So I have enough information. But at the same time, there are some people that say the same thing about Baltimore. It's The Wire. Why? Because that's where they got the information. The same place I got the information about it being driving on the opposite side in London, they got that information from the same place about Baltimore being The Wire. And guess what? Because they did such a good job at The Wire of making it aligned to the news, so that people are like, well, look, the news story is there and The Wire is there. This must be like a documentary. Not realizing that it is an exaggeration, a hyper focus, a myopic focus on just one part. But that becomes the story in their head. And since they also saw this, HBO is where they saw that people drive on the left in London. Okay, now on HBO is where they see that everybody in Baltimore carries guns. So everybody in Baltimore carries guns, as long as they don't go to London and drive on the wrong side of the road. Like, it makes sense, but that's why you start with asking people questions. Okay, who said this? It's like, well, I got to make this much money a year, or we have to. Says who? And is that? I said, okay, so why did you say that? You made this decision now because you realize that nobody else said this. You made up this whole thing in your head, and now you're sitting there like, I said, and it's like, okay, so why did you say that? What? And the reality is, most of the time, we didn't realize we had options.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the times, like, I thought this is what I had to do. My baby sister said to me one time, I was telling her about something that was happening out of town, and I was thinking about just going out and it was the Smirnoff was having a tasting competition, and I was like, in Vegas, Smirnoff tasting competition in Vegas, and this was at but this was before therapy. Just to give you some context, so this is before therapy, and I was like, yo, I think I'm gonna go, and she says, you realize that you're married with children. You can't just do that. I was like, oh my God, you do one thing like 12 years ago and everybody always wants to bring it up, just joking about it. She said, no, you didn't. I was like, yeah, we got married 12 years ago. She said, no, you do that every day. Every day you wake up, you choose to be married. If you don't take steps to be unmarried, then you are choosing that. So it's not something you did 12 years ago. Now you're just stuck with. This isn't a prison bid. You get to make different choices. And that hit me hard. Because I was like, oh, I'm not stuck. I choose this. And it started getting me to see that, I was responding a lot from my trauma and how I showed up in various relationships, professional and personal. And then when I realized a lot of it was because I didn't think I had choices. I think if you take this job, you do this, you do the work. Like I grew up in a very regimented family. So there was a power dynamic. If you were in charge, you got to make the rules. And there was a hierarchy. And I was very happy about it because I was the oldest. So that meant that, King, Queen, Jack, bro. Come on, what you gonna do? And so, and I lived that way. My family lived that way. So when I got into the world, I remember being confused when we would study history and they would talk about like how the soldiers did something wrong. It's like, no, it's not the soldiers, the generals, because the generals give the orders and the soldiers have to follow them. Mm-hmm. It never even occurred to me when I was younger that you didn't, which led to some other problems, but it was always hierarchy. And the thing is that when you bring that to the regular world, interacting with people in a regular dynamic, and you're bringing a whole set of rules that you have in your head from your family made up, and you get with somebody else, whether it's professionally or personally, well, you need to moderate or manage the vocabulary, the expectations, and make sure you're on the same page. And me exchanging words with you don't help, because I had one client, they said that they were going in 50-50. The funny part is that they had two vastly different versions of what 50-50 was. 50-50 to one of them was about decision making, because the other one was about work. And neither one of them had really thought about finances, because one had money and because they had that conversation. One had the money, the other had the experience, but they never talked about, was that the 50-50? Or was the operations 50-50? And so, it came to a time where they, first quarter, first time they were splitting revenue, or they actually made revenue and they were splitting it. It was like, okay, wait, how you think you're getting that much? It's like, we're going 50-50. It's like, yeah, but you ain't put in this much. Mm-hmm. Like, I did this extra time. So like, and it was because they had used the same words, clear communication, 50-50, but nobody taught them to explain what that meant. So they both came with the story in their head of what 50-50 meant. Right. You tell your client you're going to get there, I'm going to call you right back. It depends on what part of the country you are from, how long that is going to take.
That's very true. And I'm glad that you mentioned part of how you work for your clients, because I want to make sure that we highlight the Grinding Gang. So tell us about that. This is perfect to let us know what you do. And for those who are interested in your services, I know it's just like a perfect flow.
So the Grinding Gang is my company. So I realized a long time ago, I'm going to help people with business. The way that I got started is my dad was a serial entrepreneur. But he wasn't good at it. He was an incredibly hard worker. Like, my mother used to tell the story of the day his dad died. People came over to the house or whatever, and he went upstairs and you're like, oh, wow, Miles is moved or whatever. And he came back down in his work clothes and they were like, where are you going? It's like, I'm going to work. Your father just died. And he was like, but me being here ain't going to bring him back. And they're expecting me at work. Like, that was his work ethic. And so I know it was heavy because I was out there with him when he was doing landscaping. I was in 6 o'clock in the morning mowing grass. When he was doing videography, I was putting up 800-watt light bulbs. I did not even know that was a whole thing. But, so like, I learned all these things, and it was like, but based on how hard we're working, the money doesn't seem to equate. And so I started studying business because I was like, there's got to be something that we're missing. And that became the way that I got into it. And I launched my first business. Okay, there's this. Okay, I can't tell that story. Okay, I launched my first business when I was in the 11th grade because I worked at this place called Costco. No, Price Club back then. Later became Sam's. And so I went there and I was stocking the shelves and I saw a pricing error. There was a box of like 50 candy bars that were marked for like $4 or $5. And I was like, oh, y'all gonna lose a bunch of money. And I went to my boss to tell her, she was like, no, that's what we do here. Like we sell in bulk. I was like, so you telling me I could get this whole box of candy bars for $5? Yeah. No, it's $20. Sorry. No, 12. That's what it was. 4 times. It's like, for real. So I was like, okay. I bought it, waiting for somebody to come. Oh, no, I'm sorry. And I got to the door. They saw my receipt. I was like, do you know how much you could sell this for? So I didn't know nothing. I thought I discovered the holy grail. Like, but then it hit me. It's like, that's why so many people keep coming here. Huh. And so I took the candy bars I got, especially the blow pops, candy bars and blow pops, and bought a burgundy and gold bag because we're in the DC area, so Redskins or the Washington football team, excuse me. And I had my candy in a book bag, and I sold candy out of a book bag for 2 years. Some of my good days, I cleared $80 in profit because I started understanding the target customer. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things we start with my clients with mindset, because I can't work with you if your mind ain't right. So we go through and we talk about what you think is going to happen, where you got that from. And I provide you some pushback, because if you got some facts to support it, okay, let's go with it. Understand that it's always going to be a risk, but we can manage the risk better when we know if there's a fact that supports it, as opposed to I think this is going to work. And also how you present it to funders have to be vastly different, or it's other stakeholders has to be vastly different, because if I present it to you like it's a guaranteed thing and there's a level of risk and I've never done this before, then that's kind of fraudish. You know what I mean? Even if it's not technical fraud, it's not really good business practices. Mm-hmm. But if you understand what you're doing and you are able to communicate transparently and understand your target customer, get your mind right first, then you can actually start moving into a direction of what your success is. The next thing we do is that we work on target customers. And honestly, when I teach the longer term classes, shout out to Fosterpreneur. It's a program that I work with that teaches entrepreneurship to alumni of the foster care system. And so one of the other things that I've learned is that when I bring people to the target customer point, that's where a lot of them have challenges, because they start to realize how much the target customer was just a story in their head. So it's like, I also use this example because I use myself as an example a lot of times because it's relevant and it's also part of my personal therapies, but whatever. This way, I actually get people to pay me so I can work through my issues. It's genius. So if I decided that I wanted to get remarried, right, and I wanted to marry my ideal woman, do you know where I could find her? Not a damn place, because she doesn't exist. She's only a narrative in my head. She's an amalgam of this woman, that woman I dated, this movie I saw, this kind of feeling. She exists. Oh, and there's also a story about how we met, where it's during COVID and we're at the grocery store. I'm with my son, my youngest son, because he's home for a break. And then I tell this extremely dad joke, like, the daddest joke that you can. And I hear her laugh. And I was like, oh, you like that, do you? And she was like, it was cool. And so we kick it for a little while longer. And then we end up just standing there for a while. And my son's like, can we just go home? Because I got, he eats the cookies and cream ice cream. And I'm sure at that point he'd have ice cream melt. Oh, my set's breaking apart. But he'd have ice cream melting by that point. So he'd be like, okay, can we go home now? And I was like, okay, do you want coffee? And she'd be like, I love coffee. What kind of coffee? She'll go, Cafe Bustelo. Oh, so that's the whole story in my head. How likely is that to happen?
You have it really planned out.
But again, when you talk to people about their businesses, it sounds like, so I'm gonna open up this space, and then I'm gonna buy a building, and then when I buy a building, I'm gonna be able to open it up in the community and have wraparound services. It sounds like me talking about my ideal woman. But what it also does is that if I'm looking for her, I'm not out with regular people. I'm at the grocery store just telling bad jokes. I'm not actually out looking for, I'm sorry. I said, I'm not actually out looking for, somebody to love me, or is that somebody I can love? Because I am just trying to make a story happen. And so when I work with my clients, we start with the target customer. I'm like, who is the person? So like I have a friend, Michelle. Michelle and I have never been in a relationship, never been romantic, but she's a wonderful woman. She's my best friend. Like for a while, she was my emergency contact. And let's say I'm like, you know what? I would like to be with a woman like Michelle, not Michelle, but like Michelle. So I talk to Michelle about what she likes. I don't just like, oh, women like Michelle, like this, that, and the third. And what that means is that now there are things that I have to think about. Like Michelle likes dogs. Not so much. So then how am I going to navigate that if I found a woman with dogs? But in my ideal woman, she does not. She has allergies to dogs like I do. And so she's so wonderful. Also, people like Michelle, Michelle loves crab and seafood. I'm allergic. My ideal woman is allergic too. Go figure. And so you end up passing up people who are genuinely good in real life, whether it's personal or business, because you don't have realistic expectations of what a person really is. And so we walk through their target customer and we ask them, hey, who is the person? Tell me their name, their email address. And it's really interesting because a lot of people say, well, I don't really know anybody I'd sell to. Well, that's the thing you need to learn. That's the thing. You making up a story in your head about who you don't even have a person. Like if I gave you say I need 50,000 to start my business. If I gave it to you right now, you wouldn't be able to make the first phone call to get $1 coming in because you don't know who it is. Well, I'm gonna be on social media heavy. Who ain't? Bruh. Some businesses only exist on social media and they're better at it than you.
Yeah.
Who are you? Nobody cares. So, okay. So old school, when I first started consulting, it has evolved into a much more robust thought process and curricula. But it all boils down to two things. Who are you and why does the person you're talking to care? All of these things about your value proposition, your financials, it is who are you and why do I care?
Yes.
You talk about like, this is my car, dating, this is my car, this is my background, this is my family. Who are you and why do I care? We have the new chicken sandwich. Who are you and why do I care? Because if you out here, I love it when people advertise their crab boils and stuff like that. I don't care. Because what you're doing is that's like saying, hey, does anybody want to come to a cyanide party? Woo! No, thank you. So I don't care. We're having Old Bay. I don't care. But you start talking about you got chocolate chip cookies and almonds. I mean, hey, Ma, how you doing? What's up with you? Oh, wait. Oh, you nasty. You got macadamias, don't you? Okay, I'm with it. Macadamia. Okay. Oh, you might want to edit that part out. I just realized what that might sound like. So. Sorry.
No, but you really touched on so many gems, especially when it comes to the target market. Who are you and why should they care? That's something that a lot of people neglect. And I try to teach it with my own clients, but really it just ties into so much. And then it goes to your foundation for messaging. It goes into maybe preparing for objections to see why would they not want your particular product, but you have response and say, and can show why it would benefit them, why it would transform their lives. And once entrepreneurs really understand the root of that, they really can take their business to that next level. So it's really important I hope they took note of that, because it's really what you said was so important to the foundation of their business.
But one of the things that, and I tell people this up front, is that sometimes people take my classes, especially when they get to that one, and then they stop trying and we just start talking about business in general, because it is so disorienting. It's kind of like when you find out that thing about your parents, you're like, wait, you did what? It is that, because they have this belief. There's an entire story in their head about how things are going to go, that these people are going to love them and give them money. I mean, that story, no matter how illogical it may be, is the driving force, is the motivational force. And what I try to do is to help people calibrate. But sometimes they've been so in the clouds that even coming down to regular height is too traumatic. It's like when, under what they call the bends, when you go up, they'll move through pressure too much. For some of them, it becomes the business bends. It's like, whoa, no. So another thing about working with me, and I've gotten this feedback several times, it will be overwhelming. It absolutely will be. because most of the stuff, and again, you might want to edit this part out. The way business gets taught is bullshit, because we get taught, especially for entrepreneurs, because you get taught that business is a separate part of your life, but it's not. You live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 168 hours in a day. That's it. When you work for somebody else, there's work-life balance, because they bought 40 or so hours from your week, and they don't want less than they paid for, and you're not trying to give them any more than they paid for. So you have this ongoing tug of war, except that when you're an entrepreneur, there is no work-life balance. It's all just your life. And it means that you have to put all of these things in the right categories for you, not me, and you braid them around each other. Sometimes the braids are going to be tight. Sometimes they're going to be loose. Sometimes you're going to need a barrette to keep it going. But once you understand that this is all your life, and stop trying to pretend that you show up differently. Like, I might be mad at my kids when I leave the house, but when I show up, hey, I don't have any problems. Now, again, that's the mask that I might have to wear for you. Like, I had a show, before a show, I found out that one of my friends had passed away, and I had a show to do. Like, I didn't have the opportunity to go, but I had a show to do, but that didn't mean that it wasn't hurting. And I didn't pretend that it wasn't hurting. Actually, I was like, look, if I'm a little off, it's because a good friend of mine has just passed. And I was honest with that, because what am I doing otherwise? I can't ask you to come on my show and share you. And you can know about, I can know about you, but you can't know about me. It's the authenticity that we tend to miss.
That's true.
Even with ourselves, we want to be who we believe ourselves to be so much, we don't even appreciate who the hell we are. Yeah, I have so many people, a friend of mine, especially when it comes to issues around weight. A friend of mine, she recently got divorced, and we were going through some of her albums and stuff like that. And she was like, oh my God, if I could get back down to this size, I would be so happy. I said, I call bullshit. She said, why? I could exercise. I was like, no, I know you could lose weight. But I remember when you got married, I remember, and I thought it hurt me when you said it. You said like, oh, he's going to look down and see a white whale coming down. Ha, ha, ha. You were joking, but I remember you saying, so I know, and you weren't happy at that size. So if it's not that size by itself that makes you happy, it is because you have gained weight, and now you are looking back at that size as something favorable. That means it was never about the size. It was always about your choice. And when you are able to choose when to be happy, that's when there is no one who has more power over you. I'm not suggesting that there becomes this time where you become this island in this monolith where you don't need people, but being able to process through your emotional well-being so that you can allow the people to be in your life in a way that fits both of you. Especially for Black women, you all show up in the roles that we need you to be. And again, using myself as an example, I was so madly in love when I was 17. I asked this girl to marry me, because we was going to start and we was going to have this wonderful life together. Oh, she's so wonderful. Actually, her birthday's coming up soon. I need to send her something. So, and I was like, and I had this plan. I had it all worked out, because I had a story in my head. I've been studying love for years. I'd been reading Shakespeare and Judy Blume and Harlequin romances. I'd been listening to all the music, especially most people my age didn't know that if you listen to the 50s and 60s R&B, you'll understand love, okay? So in my mind, I'm like, I have all of this. And so I told her, like, I got a whole plan, because my mom can come and live with us, and she'd be happy to take care of the kids and cook, so we could just kind of be free to be married. Because my mother loves cooking and cleaning, and like, so we can marry. That's all she does all the time anyway. In my mind, I had a story of her role. Not that she was a woman who had needs, not that, because my thing is like, well, we'll take it. And I thought it was so cool, because I love her. I was going to clean up more, and we'd have the kids clean up, so it'd be easier on her. But that's what mothers did. They cleaned and cooked. They took care of families. That's what they do. Honestly, I was really confused why she kept going to school and to work and stuff. Like, hey, there, that's weird. But I realized now that I was part of the problem, that mindset, that you have to be the one thing, the role. And in business, also when I talk about mindset, it's like, no one gives a damn about you, and that's okay. When the last time I went for, last time I went for fast, whenever it was, I'm sure the main thing I was concerned about were my fries good. I did not stop and ask the manager, hey, What do you have on your menu that would be more profitable for you? Do you have any excess inventory that you're trying to get rid of that you need to be moving? I didn't ask any of that. I wanted my fries. And if it was McDonald's, it was the number 2 with bacon, large sweet tea with a large fry. And the fries, and I'll be willing to wait for warm fries unless I'm on my way to my mama's house, separate issue. But I know I didn't ask any of those other questions. Why? Because it's not how business works. I'm here to get what I want, give you the money for what I want. But a lot of times entrepreneurs, they see relationships that don't exist. Mm-hmm. You know, your friend that went on that one date, it's like, oh my God, it was so wonderful. Oh, he bought everything and he treated me so well and was so nice at the door. Girl. And then like 2 weeks later, I can't believe he has not called me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but where did you get the story that he was, bro? But again, the story's in our head. Mm-hmm. We do the same thing in business. And a lot of it is about getting your mindset right, setting reasonable expectations. And so again, for Black women, a lot of times the reasonableness of the expectation goes in the inverse. I've seen a white boy walk into a room and say, I need a raise of $15,000. And they'd be like, why? Because I'm a great employee. And he says all these kind of, you know, I'm this and that. And it's like, wow, okay, I can see that. A Black woman will sit there, bring spreadsheets, a full presentation to ask for 7,000 because she already has calculated that she's worth 10 and can get it, but wants to make sure they understand the value. So it's 7,500 she walks in fighting for and done all this work. The white boy gets 11, she gets 6. And some of it really is just about what you were told. How many times have you done your show without makeup?
Right. A few times. Honestly, I just have on lipstick today. I didn't even do the eye stuff.
Oh, because last time I saw you, you had on lipstick too. I just thought that's how you get down. I apologize.
No, you know what? I've noted. I have been like, I used to do full faces, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really matter.
but that is a level of insight that transforms your ability to move forward. Mm-hmm. That insight is the same reason you start your own show. This insight is the reason you grow your coaching practice, because you have the insight to realize what things, all of a sudden, these stories in your head that you have to show up this way. I might have to show up that way for you, but I don't do this for me. And I think COVID has also brought us into a place where we got, like for me, I remember I did not understand why, you know, more people didn't go to meetings or restaurants because I always had meetings and meetings and meetings. Then COVID hit and I was like, I need meetings. And it was like, but why I need meetings though? And then it hit me and it hit me really big. I had been using the meetings to keep from having to deal with some other things. Those quiet places in my head that it's like, I'm not ready for COVID. It's like, guess what? I don't give a damn. You're going to do with it now because there ain't going nobody. There's nowhere else to go. And YouTube only lasts so long. Now I'm into kitten videos, so I can get a good 4 hours a day of kitten videos. But there's still other hours that I'm not sleeping, eating, or watching kitten videos. And I had to deal with it. And it did not go well. Mm-hmm. But it's great to, I realized how much I was holding me back. Mm-hmm. By trying to be this man. I wouldn't ask for help because I shouldn't need help. Why should I shouldn't be in this situation? I shouldn't. And that's one of the ways that Black people get trained is through that bullying. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? And that becomes our voice too. Even when we think we're motivating ourselves. Don't get up. I mean, don't quit. Get up. Like, it hurts. Okay. Like the hell. This shit hurts. And we're not given the space to hurt. And if you're not given the space to hurt, how can you heal? The wound is like, if somebody was telling me, a friend of mine, she was saying, you know what? I realized that I'm coming to the end. You know, I'm moving out of this place of this narcissistic relationship with my COVID, and I'm healing. And I was like, you can't heal from the narcissistic relationship with your baby father. She's like, I guess I can. I was like, no, because it's not over. You're in it with him. He's not stopping doing what you heal. It's like, you know what? I can't heal around this knife wound right here. Look at how well the heal is, but the knife ain't out. Like the knife is still in there. You don't heal when the knife is in. Mm-hmm. And I think it's okay for us to recognize that. Mm-hmm. Life is hard. Guess what? Sometimes there is not a win. Mm-hmm. It's not. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You could have done everything right because some decisions have nothing the fuck to do with you. Sorry, I apologize.
No, you are so fine. No need to apologize because it's really true what you're saying. And it is actually speaking to me more than you know, because I'm going through my own healing journey and it was not my fault what happened to me. And so I've always been the person that's been happy-go-lucky, happy everyday positivity. And so this is a new space to experience. Okay, I'm not okay. Some days are better than others. Some days I'm just like angry at the world. Some days I'm just here. So we do need to experience that full range, because that is how we heal. We can't hold that in. It's very important. So no need to apologize. It's important for the audience to hear that, because I know some people are going through their private battles and they just don't know what to do. So I'm really glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, this is hard. This is so hard. Like we work, people, especially now, people just die. Like all of the things, anything that you used to think was normal, anything that you used to anchor into as your solid place is not the same anymore. Guarantee it. And so it makes me sometimes frustrated and confused when people talk about, let's get back to normal. One, you can't get back. That's like, okay, my car's been in an accident. Let's get back in it and drive it like nothing happened. I'm sorry. No. Like, it makes this noise because the wheel is sideways. We need to fix it. And the other thing is that one of the things I think a lot of us have realized is that normal sucked before. We just coped through normal. It was like, when you live a life where you're only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep and you live on Red Bull and coffee, well, that's not a flex. But we have been conditioned where it is. Like, literally, we live in a space where you can bring your loved one into the hospital. There can be a needle of medicine that will save their life. And because you don't have access to enough money, they will be sent home to die. Literally, they're full stop. And so what happens is that we internalize that type of thinking. And so now everything is like, so how many people do you have on this? Well, how much do you make? What is the ad revenue? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how does that matter for the human side? And I think that's one of the reasons that we're able to do such horrible things to people. A friend of mine and one of my former guests, recurring guests, his name is Sharif Small, SJS Financial Firm, and he is remodeling a 88 unit project in 88 unit apartment building in Park Heights in Maryland. And what he's doing in Baltimore, Maryland, what he's doing is that he's moving people out of one unit into another one, remediating the lead and upgrading all of their appliances and keeping the rent within the same like couple $100s of what they pay now. The reason that he does that, he says that this is the way he invests in the community. One of the ways is that you bring cash to the community. The other way is you don't take all the cash out. You actually treat them like, and that's what I told him. I was like, not only is it your economic philosophy, it is because you grew up in Park Heights. These are people you know. These are actual people. These aren't tenants. These aren't this much rent per month. This is Miss Agnes, who raised her kids here, and her other people are coming here. And now Miss Agnes needs somebody to step up to the plate. Not the tenant in room in 3B, but Miss Agnes. And that's one of the things that I really focus on in my practice. I'm not trying to beat people over the head. Like basic coaching is $19.99 a month. Executive coaching is $49.99 a month. $49.99 a month. Like, that's it, because this is me investing in the community. Because here's the funny part. I'm going to talk about this anyway. I don't know there's a couple other things to talk about, but I don't normally talk about them in public. But these are the things I could talk about. So I want to make sure that it's accessible. The other part too, less philanthropic and more selfish, is that I got tired of my clients showing up to me, after they spent $2,000-$3,000 with somebody that didn't help them. Like, I've had a number of times, it's like, wow, I work with somebody else for like 6 months, and in this like half-hour consultation, you've helped me see things that I didn't even consider yet. But I don't have no money because I gave it to the person I was working with. It's like, God damn it! So if I can keep it low price in the beginning, when you're actually prepared to scale, when you've level set your expectations, when you actually understand your target customer, we can actually do some real stuff with that money and really scale your business up, as opposed to you spending it up front and now having to earn more money to actually implement the great plan that you came up with.
That's true. And this is perfect to ask, how can our listeners, if they're interested in your services, keep up with you, your website and everything? And then also, what final advices, if you haven't given so much already, do you have for our listeners?
So if you want to get in contact with me, please do info@grindinggang.com. That's GrindingGang, like grindingandgang.com. The last piece of advice that I would have for the audience is, this is hard and it's okay. Like, I'm not suggesting that you start enabling yourself or hang out with a bunch of people that just kind of sign off on you, but recognize that some of this is just going to be hard. You're just going to be unsure. You don't actually know what you're doing. You've never been here before. And anybody who tells you should say, fuck you. Oh, so I came up with this, fuck you. Because like when people give you advice or backhanded compliments, you got to be socially appropriate. I do it more on my show because Donnie keeps telling me about cursing. So I was like, I can't say, just straight F you. So fuck you. Not thank you. Do you mean thank you? No, fuck you. I meant what I said. And so when you are in the thick of things, recognize sometimes it really is the thick of things. Find a tribe that not only you trust, but they understand the world you live in. Because sometimes people help you to your detriment. And they're trying to help you the best they can. That's a story for another time. But yeah, it's okay if it's not okay. You can move to being okay. And sometimes just take a moment off. You're right.
That's true. Words to me as well. Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I think that in just preparation of today's segment, I was like, I'm excited to hear the words of wisdom that he has to say, because I know there's a lot in that brain to unpack. And so I'm so glad that you shared it with our audience. And I hope that with whatever you do, because I know you're going to do some great things, that you keep us in mind and
absolutely.
At the
absolutely. I'm more than happy to come back and say some more words. I got more words too, so I'm more than happy to share them.
That's good to know. Well, thank you again for being on our show, and this has been another segment of Mogul Talk, and we'll see you in the next edition. Bye, everyone.